I'm gonna go ahead and get things started officially here by saying welcome to all. We're wishing you thoughts of safety and peace and happiness tonight and always. For those of you I don't know, I'm Allison Green Myers. I'm the program director here at the Highlights Foundation. My pronouns are she, her. I am joining you tonight from Northeastern Pennsylvania on the traditional and contemporary lands of the Lenape people. With me tonight from the Highlights Foundation team is our executive director, George Brown. Hi, George. Welcome to the May HF Gather. A note for all of you as attendees, especially those of you who maybe haven't been to an HF Gather before. This is a webinar, so we cannot see your video, we cannot hear your audio during the session, but we can see the chat, and we love to see the chat, and we can also see the Q&A feature. So if you have any questions, we do hope that you'll pop them right into the Q&A feature, and we'll get to just as many as possible after our great conversation tonight. I do want to mention that captions will be included in the recording of tonight's program that will be sent out to all of you and posted on the Highlights Foundation blog as well. Please do take some time to put things in the Q&A feature and to message us in the chat. We love to see that. As George mentioned, if you select everyone in the chat, that makes sure we're all able to see it. If you select host or panelist, it will come directly to us as hosts or panelists. But I would remind you, in these spaces, really in the chat, in the Q&A, on Zoom, anywhere we come together as the Highlights Foundation, we do ask for your respectful engagement. We strive for a safe and inclusive environment here at the Highlights Foundation. And so we ask that you join us tonight with no hate, no harm, and no harassment of any kind. We want to be mindful in the way that we treat one another, because what we say, of course, is reflected in the work that we do for our children. With that, I would say tonight we have our celebrated host and writer, Sarah Aronson, an author, educator, and creative director of Reading Rainbow Live, Amy Guglielmo. This week brings Teacher Appreciation Week together with Children's Book Week. And so what a better time to bring together Amy and Sarah to talk about celebrating stories through Reading Rainbow Live, which embraces the long legacy of Reading Rainbow while thoughtfully centering the readers of today. It really is a celebration, and we're so eager to learn more about Reading Rainbow Live, to learn more about Amy's work, and to listen in on this fun conversation. So with that, and with great thanks and welcome, I'll turn things over to you, Sarah. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Allison. Thank you, George. Thank you, Amy. I am so happy to be here. For those of you who have not been to an HF Gather, let me just tell you a little bit about how this all happened. It was in the beginning of the pandemic, and I was wondering how I was going to get through a month of lockdown, and thought, why don't we have some webinars to talk about the process and how to keep our creative spirits going, how to feed the muse. And so we came up with this idea. And here we are. And even though we are now seeing each other and going back to school visits, I have my first school visit in 3 years on Friday. This remains one of the most wonderful ways for us to connect, to rejuvenate, to think about the creative process, and to hear from wonderful writers and illustrators. So thank you, Amy, for coming on board. I'm so happy. Let's start by talking about your work as a writer. I love what the artist saw, and I love that you have more coming out. Also, the Art Institute has an exhibit coming out about Cezanne, so let's get on that.
Okay. So I will, and you know what? I'm just going to start. I have a slideshow, just like Chris Tebbets. I'm going to share my slideshow because I'm an art educator, and we're talking about teachers here, right? So I feel like visually, it'd be more fun to show some of my things.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm an artist. I'm not an illustrator, but I'm an art educator and an arts advocate, creative director of Reading Rainbow, and an author. And many of the books that I do write about are about authors and makers and innovators. And it's a fun space to be in. But I can say, I started as a teacher. I started as an educator, and I was really lucky to be in a classroom with one of my students. Her parents owned Chronicle Books, and they said, "Hey, do you want to write a book?" And I said, "Okay, sure." And it was really a backwards way to do things, and I didn't know what I was doing the first time. And I wrote a book, and I illustrated, and I sent it in, and they passed on it, but they sent like pages of notes, and I didn't know that was a good thing. I had no idea what I was doing the first time. So I have this, amazing letter, and they asked me to resubmit and revise. Didn't know what that meant. So it went in a drawer. And then a couple of years later, when I was teaching kindergarten in New York City, I took my kids to the Museum of Modern Art. And being an art educator, I taught kindergarten using art for my curriculum. And I took my students to the Museum of Modern Art. And one of the kids got so excited when they saw Picasso, they ran up and hugged it. And the alarms went off, and the guards ran over. And one of the parents on the trip said, "You need to write a book about this." So that's how it started. So that's how it really started, because she said, "Wouldn't it be so funny if we put hair on Mona Lisa?" And we have other kindergarten teachers here. So that's how it started. We put hair on Mona Lisa, and we made this series called the Touch the Art series. And sadly, they're out of print right now. But that was my first foray into books, and it was
Amy,
totally backwards.
I have to interrupt you for just a second, because we're simpatico. So my son, Elliot, when he was in kindergarten, did a whole thing on Monet. And I took him into New York to see the water lilies. And he sees them around the corner. He starts screaming, "Monet, Monet!" And he's running as fast as he can to the water lilies, "Monet!" And the guard scooped him up.
Good.
And said, "Young man, you don't touch the Monet." And so I love your story. That's great.
You know what? Those lucky kids that get to teach, touch the Picasso and the Monet. And, it's just a fun way to think about things. Like, it's such a serious subject, but, the hair on Mona Lisa it's funny. And it's also like a little bit of a wink and nod to parents. So my publishing story sort of started backwards, and they made this amazing series, and really inspired by being a classroom teacher, like the things that were going on in my life. Like, I used art to teach science. I used art to teach math and shapes and colors and all the concepts in kindergarten. And these books came from that, using art. So it's just funny how your interests combine. So I really hope that this can be a pep talk for everybody, and also a pep talk for me. Like, it's that time, it's springtime, there's rebirth and renewal, and it's a time to start new projects and new things. And I'm always inspired by like being around my students or being around other writers and authors. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but it's just funny that, some 5-year-old, I wonder if I'd be an author if that 5-year-old didn't do that. So it's just funny how things happen. So that was, my journey. I did 8 books in this series with Sterling, which was Barnes and Noble at the time. They were very successful. And one of them was Monet. And then all of a sudden I couldn't sell another book for 7 years. It just dried up. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's over. I'm a one-hit wonder. I'm a total failure, and imposter syndrome. And then, you know what? There was another idea. It turns out there are lots of ideas out there. So I think, I was really lucky as a kid, because I grew up around books. I grew up in a creative family. I'm an only child. my dad's kind of like the other child in the family, but I grew up in a family that gave permission. And I think if anything, like we all need permission to make stuff and do stuff and fail and try and make mistakes. And being an art teacher, it's a great, it's a great thing to just do it, just make stuff. So I know you want to say something, Sarah. Do you want to say something?
No, I love the idea of permission. They're like, because so often with the creative process, we have that moment of doubt and say, well, can I do this? Am I the right person to do this? Why am I here? And really what we need in those moments is somebody to swoop down and say, yes, permission granted.
Go be creative. Everyone has permission. Go out and make it, do it. So, my mom is very creative. She's an artist. I'll show you pictures later. My dad is also. And I didn't know I couldn't do things. And sometimes that's a bad thing. And sometimes it's a good thing. But, I'd see a dress in the store and I'd kick and scream and want it. My mom would say, well, let's go home and make it. I wanted a Barbie dream house. My dad gave me a box. Here's your Barbie dream house. Go make it. And now, like I sort of figured out, no matter what, I could just start making stuff myself. And I think as an art teacher, it always starts like that. You want to recreate something, how do you start? Where do ideas come from? What's the beginning? What's the first word? What's the first line? What's the title? What's the idea? So I think like giving ourselves permission is really important, especially now. Like I just turned 50. I know you just had a big birthday too. And the idea like, oh, I think I'd like to write a funny book. I've never written a funny book. Why can't I write a funny book? Like, am I too old to write a funny book? No, there's no like perfect time. No one said I couldn't write a funny book. So maybe I can write a funny book. Let's write a funny book.
Funny book. I was at Highlights in 2014 when my creative life changed. And I decided to just give myself permission to write all the books that no one thought I could write. So exactly. Funny, picture books, set, like just anything pretty YA, and opening those doors to a creative life without expectations is what gave me the energy to do things that I never thought I could do, and that turned out to be more authentic from me.
I think so, right? You're taking chances, you're making mistakes, you're just going for it. I think sometimes it's an idea, sometimes it's nothing, but sometimes it's something. So I was really lucky that, I learned I had permission to fail, to make mistakes, to do big things. And, I think that's really important. I think it's really important that everybody knows that. There are barriers to entry, there are gatekeepers, there's not equality, but the idea like, and you can make it, like, just do it, just start. And I often have to remind myself, like, oh, just write it down. So I'm going to keep talking about where I find inspiration. And obviously as a teacher, like, so Picasso painted his whole life. Like when he was a kid, he could paint like a photograph. He could paint exactly what he wanted to, but he wanted to paint like a kid. He spent his whole life trying to paint like a kid. And I think that's really inspiring to me because I'm around kids and they're free and they take chances and they make globs of paint and they don't care about colors, getting into other colors. And I think like have that freedom is really something to embrace. And I think for us to think like a child and be more childlike in our imagination and like, oh, this is the wrong word. So here are some pictures of me being inspired by my kids. And I think, and just not taking myself so seriously. I think that's a really important thing is not to take. So you can see this is my bookshelf outside my art classroom. And you can see that bookshelf is spelled incorrectly. I sort of love when a student told me that. And I'm like, oh yeah, should I fix it? Let's see who else noted. I think it's okay to make mistakes. It's, I think it's funny. I definitely learn from my kids. They learn from making mistakes. I always tell this story about one of my students who wanted to make a horse and started with the tail and ran out of room to make the nose. So she made it into a dog. And I'm like, you know what? I've written books like that, right? Where you start with an idea and it turns into a dog, but maybe it's the best dog, right? So
Right.
I
Or
think
it's
let
whatever.
things happen, right?
Right.
So so spend time with kids. I think it's really important. I think it's like a great way to get ideas. Here's my husband, Mr. Grumpy, and I like to bake. I like to paint walls around town. I have an organization that that is about public art. We paint walls, we spread color, we employ artists. There's a picture of my mother at my students' art show. I'm really inspired by her. I think I like to do water sports. I don't like to get my hair wet, and I like to travel. I think it's really important, if you can, to go see other places, to try new things. Like I was talking about, I just had grasshoppers for the first time in my life, and they were okay. So I think everyone should try new things and get out and see stuff. I have to remind myself that a lot, because I can be a shut-in, and I think during pandemic, I'm like, oh, let's bake some more cookies and stay inside and watch some Netflix. But I also have to remind myself, like, there's a world outside and there's stories outside, and to go for a walk and find stories and to meet people and hear different experiences and try different things and go places. I think I forget that. So I'm giving everyone permission to go outside and try new things.
Listening is like almost a forgotten art, that would, like, when we're quiet, when we go out into the world, when we put the phone down and go out into the world and eavesdrop or listen to stories or let somebody else tell us about who they are, all of a sudden possibilities open up. And I love that moment where it feels like inspiration. Here is something that you can play with. And I just love this child attitude to embrace the art, embrace the writing the way kids do, without that concern of being perfect, of making money, of anything
What's
besides
the market looking for right now?
Right.
All of those things, like, who will read this? Who is this for? So I think last summer I did 7 murals in my hometown in Plattsburgh, New York, up in the Adirondacks on Lake Champlain. Come see the murals. But it was really nice. We did a lot of community murals, and you can see this one in this picture has different bricks, and people came in and painted bricks, and people were like, I'm not an artist. And I'm like, just paint 3 bricks red. And then they couldn't stop. Like, they're like, can I do the orange ones? Can I do the yellow ones? And I think that's such a really good metaphor for, like, just get started. And it's sort of like, and then just see what happens. So I really got inspiration from that. And then another place I find inspiration is in collaboration. I think, I'm an only child, but I'm also an artist. And artists spend a lot of time in studios, sort of stealing from other artists. Artists steal. That's like a big thing. We copy, we get ideas. We've heard of mentor texts, right? Like, think about the artists, like the authors that you love, and the stories that they write. So I've always been really lucky to work with collaborators and partners. I do art shows with my mother. I have partners with a lot of my books. So I wrote Pocketful of Colors about Disney artist Mary Blair years ago. And the coolest thing is, here's a picture of my 5th grade class at Broad Street School in Plattsburgh, New York. And I'm in green. And then in the back row, Jacqueline Torville is in red. We both have monogram sweaters on. It was like 1982. And we were in elementary school together. We wrote Pocketful of Colors and How to Build a Hug together. So we connected at our high school reunion, and she was a writer, I was a writer. So you never know where collaborations are going to come from. So to me, that's very inspiring. To meet other people, it's cool.
Do you have a collaboration process?
So people always ask that, and it's very funny because I'll be like, well, I sort of come up with the ingredients and bake the cake, and Jacqueline frosts it and she makes it pretty. So that for us, that's how it works. Like, there's a little back and forth, but mostly I'm like, here you go. And then they'll be back and forth. And sometimes when I'm not working with her, I'm like, oh, I really need her to ice this cake for me. So I might still, right? That's what you have partners for. That's why you have people that you can talk to. I think it's really important to get feedback before it goes to an agent or an editor. I always like working with people. And then it's really exciting to share if good things happen. We won the Christopher Award. It was very exciting. The party with someone, it was really fun. So, and then the cool thing is with Reading Rainbow Live, I'm here in my rainbow sweater with Max Beer, the musical director, and he's one of the rainbows. I'll talk about that really soon. But he was in my kindergarten class, the class after the Picasso incident. So I am working with one of my former kindergarten students. This is the part where I get choked up. And it's so cool to see your students do these things. So you don't know where collaboration will come from. And that's really inspiring to me too. Like, how cool is that? I'm working with, I still look the same from when I was this kindergarten. Just kidding, not really.
Looking better.
He looks a little different though. He was not, he wasn't that tall. So collaboration is really important. So I started pitching kids' TV shows 20 years ago. And when I started pitching, I did an art show so that the girl in this picture is now 27 years old. I started pitching 20 years ago, and I was making a show about art, and I was totally denied because kids don't need art shows. They need shows about music. And could I write a music show? And the answer is definitely not. I couldn't. And now I'm doing sort of a combination of both. But I was told no. And then I was also told that the show was too geared towards girls, and girls don't get their own shows. They will watch what boys watch. So this was in 2002, I was told this.
So very my face.
I know, right? So very interesting. Television shows are not for girls, and no thank you to art. So, I was denied, but you know what? 20 years later, I'm back, baby. So Reading Rainbow is back, and it's really exciting. So it's a whole new iteration of the show, and we do not want to recreate the original show. LeVar Burton was amazing, and it was an incredible series. It was the most watched show in classrooms. It still is the most watched show in classrooms. And the idea of doing the 2.0 version wasn't something that was interesting to me. So when I was asked to join the team, I was asked to come on as an author and an educator and a STEAM advocate, because I think that's really important to help develop the show. So I came on as creative director, which is like the coolest job in the world. I get to come up with themes and projects and ideas, and we're doing something a little different. So we don't have one host, we have a bunch of hosts called the Rainbows. And we are focusing on reading and inspired by the books, but we're celebrating that books can take us anywhere, and we can do anything through books. And it's just so cool to use that same concept in a totally different way. So these may or may not be some sneak peeks of books that we hope to feature in the future. So it's live, and that means we have a portion of the show that's interactive, where kids can tune in and appear with our hosts of Rainbows. So we have a diverse cast. They're all really talented musicians and singers and dancers. And it was really important for us to engage kids through music and movement, because we know that it's good for your brain. We know that there are different types of learners. We know that songs help us learn concepts. And we are so lucky that there's so many great books right now that we can use for inspiration. So you might recognize some of these rainbows. This is my storybook. She's on Instagram, if you don't know her, YouTube. Maya makes some incredible interactive book videos, and maybe some of the authors here have been featured with her. So like I said, I get to pick good books there. Oh, look at this book right here. It's called Rube Goldberg, just like Rube Goldberg. So I thought it was really important to represent as many different book creators, not just have a diverse cast and have readers see themselves in these books, but also want to represent different creators and styles of books. And here's Maya reading story, doing her interactive story time. And here's our cast on set. So we have a clubhouse Clubhouse set, and we're really inviting viewers in to a book club situation. So the idea is these rainbows know each other because they went to middle school together. This is the backstory, and this is where they hung out and they make music and read books and make stuff. Sort of old school to have real people, but I think it's a fun idea. We're inviting viewers in to come play with us. So how do I'm seeing some questions right now about how books are picked and the publishers pitch to me. And it's very exciting. All of a sudden, I'm the most popular girl around. I'm getting books from all over the place sent to me.
Yeah, you are.
And it's really cool because it's a great way to learn about books. I feel like I know books, and then I'm getting ideas from, so we come up with themes for each show. And the first one, here's how we pick the books. This is how we choose the books. We look at lists. We have a committee. We have librarians and social workers and educators and parents and kids. We'll make a list from all these other lists, but I also want to make sure that I'm including books that might be overlooked and people that aren't on traditional lists, or people that might not be with traditional publishers necessarily. I think if it's the right book, we want to include it because we know there are a lot of barriers and we want to be inclusive. And oops. So the first episode was Kid Inventors, and it was a great theme, and we kind of used it loosely to talk about making stuff and innovation and creativity and imagination and taking chances and making mistakes. And we came up with the idea first, and then looking at books, we discovered Be a Maker, which I already knew about because it's such a great book by Katie Howes. And we were thrilled to reach out and have her say yes, she would love to participate in this show. And I wanted to include as many different books as possible. That I think it's great to include, a main book, to feature a book, but I also think, here's some other books. And traditionally, Reading Rainbow always had kid reviews at the end, which I thought was, we have to keep that same concept. We're doing some things a little different, but keeping the kid reviews is just so important. So that's where we decided we would have biographies, just like Rube Goldberg and Dream Builder, and then we had an interactive story time at the end, but Hedy Lamar's Double Life. So we were able to feature more than one book, which was really great because we could be more inclusive. So Sarah, do you want to say anything about when you got the call?
It was amazing. I was, pinch me. Is this real? Of course, as a young mom, I loved Reading Rainbow, and I was just so honored and so thrilled to see for my book to be in partnership with all of you, as well as all of these books. And I was so excited for Katie, and she was so awesome.
It was great. It was great. And, just thinking about the show, so I knew that we were going to try to do Reading Rainbow about a year ago. We started, and we didn't get the green light until November. And then we turned around a show. It was live March 6th. So the whole idea, giving yourself permission and just going for it. We're okay, we have a show, we have a book. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Sarah. We have some, we needed songs, we needed a cast, we needed we needed a set, we needed money. We need all these things to make a show. And having never done that before, you're why not? I'll try it. Let's see. And we, what's success? We made a show. That's great. So we have our pilot episode, and it was amazing. So it was really wonderful. So
it was really fun. Right after Reading Rainbow aired, I had a school visit, and one kid asked me, how long did it to become a successful author? And I was well, all the way until yesterday. But then I said, well, what does success look like? And I think how do you define success? And I think that over and over, that's so important for us to remember that the process is the point. It's so the point. I really want to know how you guys make up the songs. Like, do you all work together? Do you riff together?
It's fun. So we have the idea, and then I was part of the writing team. We get the books, we get the permissions, and then you sort of take that inspiration. And I knew that we wanted to make a Rube Goldberg machine. I thought that would be like the perfect sketch. And I honestly didn't realize that it had to work. And I think you always want to tell kids the truth. And I think it's really important. We had a director that said, if we're having a Rube Goldberg machine, it better work. And I don't know how we did it, but it worked. It just had to work once. It didn't have to work. And also we had to tape it so it breaks. So there's a song. Oh, I wish I could play the song, where they're singing along and it doesn't work. And it is all about trying again and working together and rebuilding it. So the songs, a week before the show, we didn't have that song for that. And Max Beer, my kindergartner, pulled through and he made this song, and it's so good. So I'll see if at the end, maybe I can try to do a little sneak clip at the end.
That would be awesome.
If I can figure that out.
It was so great.
So we don't know, what the future is what's going to happen. We're currently raising money to make an entire series, a 10 episode series. So that was the first one. And we want to make sure it's accessible, and we want to make sure it lives someplace. But part of the cool thing is having the interactive show. So like Katie House was able to come on, and kids were able to meet and talk to the author. We had, I did some art projects with kids at the end. We had a dance party. We had sing-alongs. We really extended the show in a live feel. Originally, we were even talking about, in the way like Sesame Street Live, that maybe it comes to a town near you, you buy tickets, you're in a live theater with the performers. So there are a lot of possibilities. We just want to we know that we made this great show with really catchy songs. I'm still like singing them. I think the best part of the show was we had real kids come on and sing songs about why they love books and share stories about books and their favorite reading spots and their love for reading. And it was so inspirational. And I think the show is very earnest, because it really reached a lot of kids and they watched it over and over again. So I will try to share a clip at the end, but we are working on new ideas and new books, and we want to continue, and we just don't know the timeline. It will happen. We don't know where it will live, and we don't know when it'll be back, but it'll be back.
Excellent. It's exciting.
So let me see. I'm gonna stop this share now. Let me see if I can find a little clip. But if anyone, did I go over my time? Is it question?
No, you have not gone over your time at all. I really have to ask though. So you're an art activist. You're making murals all over New York. You're creative director of Reading Rainbow. You're writing your own books. How? When? How do you define balance?
Well, for a long time I didn't, and it's really unhealthy. And and that's something I need to get better at. But I'm taking some time right now, so I'm a little relieved we're not jumping back into shows. But it's also hard. It's hard. Like having free time is really hard, because it's something like, when you're busy, you're like, I can't wait until I have time to sit down and write again. And then when you have time, you're like, well, let me just go outside, because I haven't been outside. Or let me, I think balance is really, really hard. So you know what? My laundry doesn't get done, or my dishes don't get done. That's where I find balance. I let something go, and it's usually the housekeeping. So
my husband is probably thinking, yeah, she does it. Yeah, that's balance. Leave all that stuff to husband.
Right. I think that's, okay. So and my husband's really good. You know, I don't have kids, and I have like 10 godchildren. I have a lot of kids in my life. I'm a teacher. I'm in touch with all my students. And I think, I'm like, oh, you know, I feel like I have a little extra time because I don't have kids, but you know, husbands can be a handful too.
Indeed.
So I am just going to say, can I show a little clip?
Let's show a little clip, and I'll look over these questions, and then we'll take some questions.
I see Allison popping in, and you know what? I'm actually going to share a clip. I'll share the review. Let's see if you recognize. Oops, don't look at my messy. I'm an artist. I have a messy. That's one thing that I look at. Let's see.
This is the book that I am sharing today. Just like Rube Goldberg, the incredible true story of the man behind the machines. And I love this book. He was known for creating these incredibly complex machines for very simple tasks. Like, would you believe that this is how Rube Goldberg thought about how donuts get their holes? What I learned in this book is never put your dreams on hold. If you dream big and you have fun while doing it, you too can achieve great things just like Rube Goldberg.
So I'm going to show, I love it. I'm going to show, this is the song for the Rube Goldberg machine. And I should say that we wanted to have special guests and we couldn't figure out how to have special guests. And, you know, we had Vlad do a book review and it was kind of perfect. So here is the Rube Goldberg song. Let's see.
Line it up, that's the only way to do it, cause the train can't run without the track. Link it up, add another toggle to it. Oh, let's get it done. Line it up, that's the only way to do it, cause the train can't run without the track. Link it up, add another toggle to it. Oh, let's get it done. Taking stock, we rainbows rock, the invention's set.
But we're not quite done yet.
We've come this far, there's no time to relax. Smooth out the curves, let me fill any gaps. Our work looks great, let's make it pristine. Line it up, that's the only way to do it, cause the train can't run without the track. Shape it up, if it's broken then we'll glue it. Oh, let's get it done. Line it up, that's the only way to do it, cause the train can't run without the track. Keep it up, start strong and stick into it. Oh, let's get it done.
Whoa, all done?
Yeah, that was fun. Now let's get run. Okay,
It's going. Come on.
all right,
Okay.
it's working. This is it.
Here we go. Oh. I know how to fix this.
What if we
Light it up, that's the only way to do it, cause the train can't run without the track. Link it up, add another toggle to it. Oh, let's get it done.
Problem solved?
almost done? Now let's get run.
Woo!
Let's go. Work. Almost there.
We're there. Woo!
Hey, all right. So you get to see a little bit of the show.
You know, when I make a Rube Goldberg machine and it doesn't work, I yell balderdash.
Oh, and does that help?
No, but it makes me feel better. All right, let's take some questions. All right. So your book, Amy, Cezanne's Parrot, did the inspiration of point of view development from books read about Cezanne, or did you simply imagine the idea?
Okay,
Did
so
the
I have a
inspiration,
yeah, so the inspiration for that book, so I was writing my Touch the Art book, and this is where I get inspiration. You're researching another book. Who did I see? Someone wrote this recently about finding inspiration when you're working on another book and you're doing research. So I was doing research for another book and I learned this fact about Cezanne. So artist Paul Cezanne had a parrot that he taught to say Cezanne is a great painter, which I thought was like so funny. Here's this great artist who needs like an inspirational animal or affirmation animal, I guess. And I thought, like, we all need that parrot to say you're a great writer or you're a great teacher or you did a good job today, way to go. So he really did have this parrot, and I'm like, what a great story. So so I didn't imagine the idea, and I did use some of his quotes. The quotes aren't exactly when, but it is nonfiction. It's not imagined. So not everything happened that way, but it is a nonfiction book.
I just want to say that I want to get a parrot that says, Sarah, you're a great writer.
Don't you? I know. I think it's kind of cool, right? We all have like doubts, like keep going, you're doing a great job. So I thought it was really cute.
I think of the Highlights Foundation as the place of the three, of all the C's, the words that start with C: creativity, curiosity, and confidence.
There you go.
So often confidence is like something we don't want to admit to. But when you're confident, you do your best. You don't worry about trying new things. You are more daring, and you dance to the music. So we all need that parrot.
We all need the parrot. And, and so the way it happens in the book, he keeps trying to impress the parrot, and it doesn't really say, Cezanne's a great painter. He says other things, or he like yawns, which I don't know if that really happened, but it was really working that parrot. So I think, he was an artist who worked really hard, and it just, I'm Cezanne. I feel like I'm like still working to impress the parrot. So I think we all have that parrot on our shoulder that we're like trying to get that feedback from.
That's
so
right. And I feel like when I love when we find somebody to write about. I felt this way with Rube, and I felt this way when I just finished a book about Bella Abzug, that the person's life was giving me the opportunity to say something I really wanted to say. Figure out what you want, work as hard as you can, and have a great time getting there. That is my mantra.
It's so true. And it's funny because when I interviewed Temple Grandin about how to build a hug, she was screaming at me on the phone, like, kids need art. And I'm like, I know. Like, you're absolutely right. Kids need art. I'm an art teacher. I guess. She's like, no, make sure kids need art. I'm like, yes. So you do, right, sort of find yourself like, why are you attracted to writing about these certain characters? There's something that you're connecting to. And maybe with Cezanne, it was like self-doubt. And maybe, right? Maybe it's me screaming that kids need art when I'm writing about Temple Grandin. So those sort of things, I think, right? And also, I think what I learned about being a teacher is kids are really interested in things you're excited about. So if you feel really strongly about a certain person, a certain idea, they will feel that. And I think as a writer, you can express that too. Like, I just love telling people about these things. So
yeah, enthusiasm is contagious. So like when you're around a person who's excited about things, it's impossible not to be excited. That feeling is catchy, and that feeling gives us, again, that word permission to start thinking about things in a new way, which is that's the biz.
That's the biz.
So Sharon asks, are you going to sponsor kids writing contests on the show like the former series did?
Yes, absolutely. So we did for the first episode, and I didn't show you, but we did have kids write songs and poems about reading. And I think we'll have, with different themes, we'll have them write about different things. So I can't really tell you what the different themes will be, but say, for example, one of the shows was about families. Maybe kids would write about their family, or, about something else. We would have kids write to a theme and have contests. So I think absolutely we want to keep that going. And maybe it's dance and art and other different styles of expression as well.
And I think that is, I think that they all the arts help each other. So like when after a night of dancing, or music or making
Totally.
art, when we were in Greece, Gareth Hines had us paint on the island of Idra. I know.
That's amazing. So as an author and artist, I'm lucky because if I get stuck with one, I sort of go back and forth, and it's great. And it does sort of free your mind a little bit. And I always tell my students, if they're in other classes, to doodle. And, doodles, science says doodles help you remember things. And if you make a spiral when you're listening, it like opens up your brain. It just does amazing things. So everyone practice your spirals.
So that's a Linda Berry thing.
Yes,
She
it is
says
Linda Berry.
To start your day by making the spiral. So
Yeah.
when I was in Greece, I see that the spiral is everywhere, that it's a symbol for life. And I
Yes.
was like, yeah, that's right. And just making it just gets me away from my regular day and into my wonderful, my story, whatever I'm working on.
I'm seeing a lot of great questions.
We have some questions about the rainbow and this selecting books or becoming a rainbow or joining the selection committee. Should we bring Kate? Can we bring Katie in?
Yes, absolutely, bring Katie in. And I can say go to readingrainbowlive.com if you're interested in applying to become a rainbow or having your book submitted or helping join the selection committee for the books. I see you. Like, we want to make sure that this is, we want feedback. We want people to feel engaged. There's Katie House.
Hi there.
Yeah, so please, readingrainbowlive.com. There's a contact section there, or my name at gmail.com. You can write to me directly. I think those are good questions.
Hi, Katie.
Well, hey, Sarah. It's so good to see you. It's been too long.
I
Hi,
know.
Amy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for squeezing me in on my short notice. It was very sweet of you. It's so cool to be part of this.
No, we're so happy. So tell us about when you got the call and what it was like. What did Amy do? How did it all go?
I want to
How
know.
did it all go? I think
know.
we started on Facebook Messenger, honestly.
And that was a
Oh
fun
my
thing.
goodness.
Like, that's what, I'm like, who do I know? Who do I know? How can I get to this person? I think that's the cool thing
I think there's a lot of ways to connect to people these days. And there are times where social media has been overwhelming for me and I've needed to step back from it. And there are times where I really value the connections that it's provided and that it's let me make, either for me and my career, but also for helping connect other people who otherwise I'm just like, you two should know each other. I have to put you together. And I think I did some of that even involved with the show and things like that. I was like, you know who you should talk to? Because
you did.
I always have like 36 more ideas when somebody says something.
But that's the coolest thing. I think did you introduce us to our kid special guest, to Sammy Vance?
To Sammy, yeah. We actually share an agent, and I've been following Sammy for a long time. She's the one who had that idea for the buddy bench that was made out of bottle caps. And she sort of launched that project and started it going all over the place. And that was something that my Daisy troupe had made a mural out of bottle caps. And so we saw like the parallels between those things. And I always thought how amazing it was that she sort of did that herself at a young age.
And she's
so finding a way to connect her with the show so that she could share her energy and like her enthusiasm and her idea that she could make things happen no matter how old she was. It just was so awesome to get to do that and to share that. So
and we
it's
really
been a
want
lot
to
of fun.
feature real kids. Every episode, we're calling them event because they're live. Every event we want to feature real kids, and it was great to have an author and someone who's a maker, or an inventor. So we think that's really important. It's something that we'll continue to do. So thanks, Katie.
Yeah, no problem. And Sammy's just been fantastic too. When I visited schools and she knows I'm going to go see a school and see kids and talk about the show, she'll send copies of the book for me to give out to kids as prizes and things too. So she's just got such a big heart, and she did a great job being part of all of this and just sort of spreading love and creativity so that everybody can do it in their own way. So this has been a fantastic opportunity for me. I'm looking forward to seeing what you all do next, because it's it's
And
just so exciting. And I loved watching the show. You know, the songs get stuck in my head, like
songs get stuck
constantly.
in your head. And the kids songs, like the kids wrote songs about books and I'd be singing them. I'm like, "Ugh." Yeah. So the theme song, there's a new theme song. There's a lot of, great things that we tried to continue the tradition, but update a little bit. And we also really loved the invention and idea, and that there's so much STEAM that I think we're going to really lean into STEAM and art projects, and maybe have some science and cooking segments, like really leaning into it. So if you have a STEAM book, I'm just saying, or an idea for a STEAM book, those are some things, or, but I think the fun thing is you can take almost any book and use it as a launch pad, right? And that's, it really is how ideas grow. And then you talk to somebody, you're like, do you know this book? Do you know this? Have you thought about that? And we're, we are a rainbow family. So we welcome ideas and we welcome people to send their thoughts and, introduce us to people we don't know about, or book creators. We really want everyone to feel like it's everybody's show. It's for everyone. We want them to see themselves. We want to really make sure that we're not overlooking anyone, but also we want to do something new and different.
Well, I mean, community is the foundation of all of this. And I loved the feeling that this was sort of a representation of our creative community in the way that we all love each other's books. We all celebrate books and reading and children and children's voices. And that was real, it's good to have things like that in our world right now.
And I think you also reflect that it's not just the writer, the author, the illustrator mindset, but it's this teacher mindset that I saw from so many people who were involved in these projects. Not even all of them were teachers, but so many of them had that mindset of, oh, what can we tie that to that's going to make it connect to the kids emotionally, that's going to help them remember it, that's going to make them feel competent and like autonomous, that they can go out and do these things themselves.
Yes.
I think of that as the elementary school teacher mindset. Like that's what they're going for day to day. And so much of that was in like every step of this process of making that event, as far as I could see from, my perspective. And I loved seeing that.
Oh, I'm so glad. And I hope that it feels good to everyone. I hope it has a warm, fuzzy feeling. And so there's some nostalgia there, right? And we did some winks and nods to fans of the old show. I used to, as a teacher, I used to use Reading Rainbow in my classroom. I'd show it, and then I'd have kids do book reports in the style of. So if you were any teachers out there, if you want to, take a chance and try it, it's a great way to get kids to pretend they're on camera, or now everyone's on camera, right? You could easily do that. So I hope we're not, how can we watch? I'm seeing other questions and I don't know if we're running out of time.
I'm going to duck on out of here and put you guys back on spot here. Let me.
Can people still watch the show?
So not currently, it's not currently airing, but it will live someplace, and we'll make sure. We do have a YouTube channel that has clips, and we'll be posting some other clips. But we will definitely, I see some questions about LeVar. We'd love to have LeVar come back as a guest, or that would be really fun. The show we are featuring picture books, but there might be opportunities for other books. And since I'm an artist, have I ever thought of illustrating one of my books? I'd love to. I'm not an illustrator, but yeah, of course, it's a dream. I would also like to be Secretary of Education, so I'm putting that out there as well, and have my own imprint. So if we're making requests for things into the universe, yes, I'd love to be an illustrator. And
I'm voting for you for Secretary of Education.
Right? I mean, it's totally possible. Everything's possible. We're giving each other permission today.
If we can leave on that note with this mindset that everything is possible, that your dreams can happen, that your vision for yourself is just that you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other and have a great time doing it, please, people, then we're all going to get where we want to go, because there's room for everyone. And I think that's that is one of the things that, as I send it back to Allison, that I think is always there at highlights, is that there's room for everyone. We all help each other. It was just lovely to talk to you. I feel really motivated right now. I was like, I got to get off this call and start writing.
I know, me too. I'm gonna go outside, and then I'm gonna go for a writing.
Excellent, excellent. Hi, Allison.
Hi, thank you both so much. That was inspiring and fun. And it just, I mean, it centered kids. Like you couldn't hear the things that you were talking about and not think about kids and them being at the center of all of those pieces. So it was lovely. Thank you for everything you do to celebrate stories and our readers. I do want to mention another celebration, just a reminder. We will be celebrating this Friday, May 6th, the inaugural Floyd Cooper Day in connection with Children's Book Week at the Children's Book Council. We hope that you too will be celebrating Floyd Cooper Day. Every child a reader. And I'll put the link to make sure that you can see all of the great programs Kidlit TV is hosting. So many readers. Talk about sharing, engaging things with kids. We've got celebrity readers of our own right reading Floyd Cooper books over there on Kidlit TV. Please make sure to spread the word. The Highlights Foundation will be celebrating all day too. We hope that you will be. Tag us in your pictures, share with us the fun interactive activities that you're doing with kids. I want to say a special thanks to our Highlights Foundation team who make events like this free and possible to our community so we can continue to grow. I want to thank Sarah and Amy so much again. And Katie, thank you for popping on tonight. That was wonderful. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Happy Children's Book Week. Looking forward to a happy Floyd Cooper Day. Thanks so much to all who've gathered tonight. Please be safe and stay in touch, and we'll see you soon.